audience, and welcome back to another segment of Secrets of the Law. As always, I'm your host, Janelle Savaya, and with me, I welcome back the owner of the Seva Law Firm, Pradeep Savanthanathan. Pradeep, welcome back.
Hi.
We haven't seen you in a while.
Yes.
So today, we'd like to talk to you guys about how to maximize your auto accident. But before I lead into that topic, why don't we kind of give the audience some information on why some people have misconceptions of the value of cases.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. And that's a great opening question because a lot of the cases that we get and a lot of the clients that we get in our office, they come in with expectations of what their auto accident case should be worth based off of what they see on TV, based off of advertisements saying that I got $100,000 for a certain claim or a certain case. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's even more than that. I got $1 million. And so the expectations of what the value of a car accident case actually is has been unreasonably set by these commercials because they don't tell you the facts behind the clients that are being put in these commercials. For instance, the majority of auto accident cases, the bodily injury cases, mm-hmm. they don't have very high policies. So the amount you can get in an accident case is dependent on the insurance policy that the person who hit you had.
Okay.
So if that person has the state minimum of $50,000, that is the most you can get is $50,000.
Okay.
A lot of people don't understand that. And to get into the several $100,000 range, you would need to get hit by somebody who had that big of a policy to begin with. If you want to get into the $1 million range, you would have to be hit by someone who has that policy. Now, who has $1 million policy?
Such as a semi-truck?
Yes, correct. Very few individuals have $1 million policy.
Okay.
Most of the time, if you're going to get hit by somebody, they will have around a $250,000 max. That is like the average you would see in the suburbs of Metro Detroit now. But in general, if you're in this, like in any of the urban areas in Metro Detroit, you're going to have a $50,000 policy, and that's the most you can get. The times that you get into that $1 million range is when you do get hit, as you indicated, by a truck, a commercial vehicle. Those are the ones who have $1 million policy. So when you see on TV a lawyer saying in their commercial that I got somebody $1 million, mm-hmm. what they're not telling you is they got that $1 million because their client was hit by a semi-truck. And that's one of the many facts that are not being divulged and not being told to everyone when they're hearing these commercials. And understandably so. These TV lawyers need to talk about their best cases, so I'm mm-hmm. not faulting them. I'm just telling you this is why there is a misconception and a misunderstanding about how much you can actually get from these cases.
But if you're hit by a commercial vehicle, let's just say not a semi-truck, but just a commercial vehicle that has that $1 million policy, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that $1 million, correct?
No, and that's actually another very good point that you're making, which is the policy limits is the maximum you will get from that case. So if someone has a $250,000 cap, that is the most you'll be able to get from that case, unless there's underinsurance, which is a whole other topic we don't need to get into today. But let's assume there's a $250,000 cap on the person who hits you.
Right.
That is the most you'll ever get. But in order to get to that point, you'll have to go through a lot of proofs showing to the insurance company, or if it gets to a jury, to show them what evidence you have that requires a payment of that amount of money.
Meets that value.
That meets that value.
Okay.
Same thing with a commercial vehicle. Just because you got hit by a $1 million policy truck doesn't mean you're going to get that $1 million. And most of the times you won't even get close to that, because in order to get to that, and we can talk about this a little bit more in a second, but in order to get to $1 million threshold, you have to have either lost limbs, you have to either lost your arms, lost your legs, had multiple surgeries to your neck and back, or major surgeries that involve insertion of metal cages, screws, those types of surgeries, or you have a closed head injury that results in you not being able to function like you used to. For instance, some people after an accident, they have a closed head injury, they start having seizures,
Okay.
they start having the inability to control their bowels, they have, major effects to their cognitive abilities. Those are the types of injuries that will move you to that $1 million range.
Okay. So let's talk to them a little bit about how you can maximize your accident value. I'll have a few follow-up questions, but let's start with that. How can you maximize your accident value?
Okay, so if we're talking about maximizing your value, we're talking about getting from zero, which is the starting point of every case,
Correct.
to the most that's in the policy. So the way that insurance companies value these cases, all of them start at zero. So when you get in an accident, everyone thinks, oh, I got in an accident, I'm going to make some money.
Right.
All cases, and this is under Michigan law, start at $0 because we have something called a serious impairment threshold. That means you do not even get to make a claim to the insurance company, to the opposing party's insurance company, until you've met a threshold level of injuries. And when I say threshold level of injuries, that means you have to have an objective impairment of a body function
Okay.
that generally affects your ability to lead your normal life. And now, those are very weird word choice that I've used.
Okay.
It may sound weird, but that's the actual language in the statute. That's the actual language in the law, which is an objectively manifested injury that changes your general ability to lead a normal life. So let me break that down. So first thing you need to show is an objectively verified injury. What that means is you need to be able to show to the insurance company that your injuries are not just verified by yourself. You
so
can't.
Meaning subjective, like not saying that I'm
It's
in
not
pain.
just subjective. Like I can't go to the insurance company and say I got injured, pay me $10,000.
Okay.
You have to have an objectively verified injury. And so how do we get an objectively verified injury?
Yeah.
That's through medical records. So you
Okay.
have to have a medical record from a doctor stating that you have certain injuries, okay?
Okay.
Sometimes just a record from a doctor isn't going to be sufficient either, because if you have a pre-existing injury, or if it's a very minor diagnosis from the doctor, if they say you have whiplash. People come in all the time and say, oh, I have whiplash. My doctor, they say to me as if it's a good thing. Whiplash is not a good finding from a doctor. That is actually just basically saying that you have a minor soft tissue injury that's going to resolve soon.
Okay.
What you need, and this is very important to establish your injury, is an MRI.
Okay.
An MRI gives you an objectively manifested report of what's wrong with your neck or back.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm guessing your next question would be, what is an MRI? So an MRI basically.
Well, MRI versus X-ray. I think
Right.
maybe explain the difference.
So that's a good question. So an X-ray is a picture essentially of the bones in your body. So
Okay.
an X-ray can detect if you have a broken bone in your body, because it can see a break, because it puts basically it's like a camera taking away your skin and your muscles and only looking at the bone,
Okay.
and it will only show you what's in your bone.
Okay.
Now, most car accident injuries are not broken bones. That's not the mechanism that creates injuries in an auto accident. The way an auto accident injury typically happens is you get hit and then you jerk forward, and that sudden jerk forward causes injuries to your spinal column, your neck, your back, all the way down your spine. And it is not to bone, but actually to soft tissue, and specifically something called the vertebral disc, which is basically what's in your spine.
Okay.
There's little cushions in between your spine, and when those get pushed out of place, they hit your your spinal nerve,
Okay.
and that is what causes pain. So when you have pain in your neck or your back, it's because something is pinching the nerve that's going down your back, your neck and back, and that cannot be detected by an X-ray.
Okay.
That can only be detected by an MRI. And what an MRI does, it detects soft tissue injuries. It can see inside of your body and determine whether or not that vertebral disc has shifted and whether it's bulging out and hitting your nerve. Because anytime anything hits your nerve, it's going to cause pain.
Is that called the herniated disc?
That can be called a herniated disc,
Okay.
a disc bulge. There's different ways that doctors will identify it, but once you have that, you have an MRI report, now you have the first element of having an objectively verified injury.
Okay.
So,
Let's go over your inability to lead a normal life.
right. So first you're going to need that first part of objective injury. The easiest way, of course, is the MRI, as I said. But there's other ways to get objective injuries.
Okay.
But then you need to also show that there's been a change to your life, okay? If you have, let's say you have a herniated disc in your back, and all you do is, after the accident, is you miss one day of work, you go back, and you go back to going to play basketball every day, you go back to traveling, you go back to doing everything you used to do, your case is still worth 0.
Okay.
Because you have not met the second element of the serious impairment threshold. So, as I said, the objective part, you've satisfied with the herniation and the MRI. But the second part, showing there's a change in your life, you have not met it unless you show that there has been a major change. So, what you would need to do is you need to show you've missed time from work, significant time from work, that you will have to come in and testify at your deposition that you no longer can do the hobbies you used to do, whether it is, playing sports, whether it is going to movies, traveling, going to church, going to the mosque, going to make, if you're a chef, if you like cooking,
Okay.
if you like going out to parties, whatever it is that you do socially, boating, fishing, it doesn't matter whatever it is, you want to be able to tell the insurance company that because of this accident, I am now not able to do any of these activities anymore.
Okay.
And that's how you show the general ability to lead your normal life has not been changed. So there's the social aspects, which I just talked about, but then there's also the day-to-day household activities and chores that you can use to show your life has changed. So if you don't have a lot of social activities, you can also show it to the insurance company by saying, I now need help with cooking, cleaning, laundry, doing yard work, anything around the house that you used to be able to do and that you can't do now after the accident. That is a subjective change to your life.
Okay. So let's go through some specifics of how to maximize. So, for instance, the doctors that you see, are there certain doctors that auto accident victims should see?
Right. So there's definitely certain doctors that will increase the value of your case.
Okay.
And I want to tell everyone who's listening that you should not make any medical decisions or even decisions to take off work based off of an auto accident case.
Right.
Okay. You need to do what is best for your health and what is best, what your doctor recommends.
Okay.
We as lawyers should not be dictating what you do as far as your medical choices.
Okay.
But I will tell you how the insurance company values these cases and what doctors you see and how frequent you see them and what level of treatment makes a big difference. In fact, that probably makes the biggest difference in the amount, in the value difference for a specific injury. For instance, if someone has a herniated disc and all they did was what we call conservative treatment,
Okay.
chiropractic, physical therapy treatment,
Okay.
that is considered conservative treatment, then the value of your case only gets to a certain point. So let's just say all you did was physical therapy and chiropractic, and you missed 3 months of work.
Okay.
The value of that case likely is worth anywhere between $5 to $20,000, depending on the external factors. That's your range typically.
Okay.
Now I'm not saying that is the absolute. You can get more than 20,000, or you can get less than 5. But that is your range of all you do is conservative treatment,
Okay.
physical therapy, and chiropractic. If you add on to that pain management, which is the, treatment with a physical medicine doctor, treatment with a neurologist, treatment with any kind of anesthesiologist that does pain management, then you're adding an additional amount of value to your case. So now that $5,000 to $20,000 case goes into a range of 15 to 35 or 40,000.
Just by seeing a pain management
Just
doctor.
by seeing a pain management doctor. You
Okay.
know, and it's a wide range. I'm saying at 15,000
Right.
all the way to 40,000. Now, if that pain management doctor then says you need epidural injections or steroid injections or something that we call rhizotomies or nerve blocks, these are procedures that basically are done to you to mask your pain, to make your pain, doesn't make your pain go away, but it stops the pain, stops you from feeling the pain for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, these are procedures where they stick a long needle in you and put numbing medication in you, or they sometimes will burn your nerves so you don't feel the pain. If you get these types of treatments, then the value goes up even more. So that $15,000 to $40,000 range may now go to $25,000 to maybe $55,000,
Okay.
$60,000, somewhere in that range.
And that's considered invasive treatment, correct?
That is, yes.
Okay.
That is invasive treatment because now you're doing something inside of your body.
Or aggressive.
It's more aggressive and invasive. So
Okay.
you're doing something inside of your body that is not just external.
Okay.
So now we're at this $25,000 to $60,000 range because you've had physical therapy, chiropractic, then you've consulted with a pain management doctor, and then you've gotten those injections.
Okay.
Now, if your doctor then recommends, your PM&R doctor, your pain management doctor, if they then recommend surgical intervention because they don't see your body healing itself or the physical therapy is not working, surgery is the next option. And if they recommend this, then we're going on to eat a little bit more. Now, if you don't get the surgery, it's one thing. If you don't get the surgery, but it's confirmed that you need a surgery and you get that surgical recommendation, the value of your case still should go up from that 25 to 60 range to maybe 35 to maybe the $70,000 range
Okay.
at that point. Okay. Now, if you actually then get a surgery, that is when your case finally gets into that six-figure range.
Okay.
And we're talking about over $100,000. Getting above $100,000 without a surgery is possible. And I've settled so many cases where I've done that.
Right.
But it is not typical. It is not easy to get into that six-figure range without a surgery.
Okay.
So I think a lot of clients need to understand that when they come in and they're looking for a six-figure settlement and they don't have a surgery, this is not going to be a very easy thing for them to accomplish. Those clients that do get into that six-figure range without a surgery, it's typically because they have a significant head injury or they were extremely healthy before the accident and there's something major that they cannot do after the accident. If you're a professional athlete, you don't get surgery, but you're still severely injured, that still could be a six-figure settlement.
Okay.
For instance, I once represented a gymnast, and she was not a professional athlete, but she wanted to do this for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
She had a clean bill of health before the accident. Even if she didn't have a surgery, her case would have been worth six figures because of who she was and how much she depended on having a healthy body.
Okay.
So there's other factors that goes into it, but if you look overall, it's that progression of treatment that you're required to get into that six-figure range.
You talked about surgical recommendation and surgery. What about if you do physical therapy, pain management, but you don't get injections, but you have an injection recommendation? Does that increase your value a little bit?
Yeah, correct. I mean, so all of these things, there's no set amount that it increases, but every step of the way, if you get a new type of treatment, either recommended or performed, that's going to increase the value. Obviously, if it's recommended, it'll increase it a little bit. If it's actually performed, it'll increase it a lot. And then it also depends on what type of that treatment it is. Like, if you get more injections, it's going to be worth more. If you get a multi-level surgery on your neck or back, that's going to be worth more than a single level. And what I mean multi-level means more than one vertebrae gets operated on. That will be worth more than if just one vertebrae gets operated on. If you get surgically implanted a cage or a screw or something of that nature, that might be worth more than not getting a hardware installed. A shoulder surgery is worth much less than back surgery. Like, there's different types of surgery, different types of amounts. So you should not go into a surgery expecting a certain value outcome out of it. You should be talking to your attorney to figure out, this surgery, what is this worth? And again, do not get a surgery because you expect it to increase the value of your case. You should always defer to your doctor's opinion and only get a surgery when it's necessary.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Should you get a surgery? And ultimately, it's if you're comfortable with it and you consult with your doctor. We can only tell them from a legal standpoint, what a surgery means in a case, correct?
Right. So that is very important to know. I would hate to see any clients, and I would hope no attorney out there would recommend this. I would hate any client to come in and get a surgery to try to increase the value of their case.
Okay.
Your body is not worth the potential increase in value. You should not be getting any kind of unnecessary treatment just to increase the value of your case. If you need the surgery, your doctor's going to tell you, and then it will organically increase the value of your case. But again, I would never get a surgery just to increase the value of the case.
Let's say a client has pre-existing conditions or had a prior accident in the same area where they now require a prior surgery in the same area where they will require another surgery. Sorry. What would be the value of that case?
Okay, so you bring up an interesting point, or an important point, which is, let's say we get to that, a value of a certain case. If there are other factors that cut against that value, what happens? So one aspect or one factor that can cut against the value is having pre-existing injuries.
Okay.
Okay. So if someone has pre-existing injuries, especially if they've had another car accident before, that gives the defense, the insurance company, a prepackaged basically arguments against the value that we're claiming. Okay, so if we have a $100,000 case, if we've gotten to a point which we think is the treatment is worth $100,000, the amount of time missed from work and the social activities are worth $100,000, that doesn't mean we're still automatically going to get it.
Okay.
If the insurance company has defenses such as a pre-existing injury, and I'll get to the other defenses as well, but a pre-existing injury, that is going to start moving the
value backwards?
The value back to the zero direction. So you're gonna start. It's like you see the scales of justice. Every time we add something that's beneficial to your case, the value will go up and up and up and up. But every time that the defense adds a portion on their side, a defense, then the value goes a little bit more down. So if we're at 100,000 point, but you have pre-existing injuries, now your value is going to go down significantly depending on how bad your prior conditions were, how bad your pre-existing conditions were. So, for instance, if you had back injuries in the accident, and you had all those injections and everything went well, and we are at like close to $100,000.
Okay.
If you had a prior back injury from 10 years ago, and but it resolved, but you know it was a clear back injury, the value of your case is going to get knocked down probably like $20,000 or so, $20,000. So we're now talking that 100,000 might go into the $80,000 range because you have pre-existing injuries that cast doubt as to whether or not your current injuries are actually related to the accident or are they related to your prior issues.
Okay.
Typically, we can say that there's been an aggravation or exacerbation based on the fact that you haven't had problems for the last 10 years. So it doesn't take the value down significantly.
Okay.
But let's say you had a back problem just a year ago,
Okay.
and then you got an accident. Now, it's very close in time, and your doctor's not going to be able to differentiate which the pain is coming from, your prior injuries or your accident.
Okay.
And in that case, the value is probably going to go down way more than that $10,000. It may go down, $30,000 because you have clear records showing that this person was injured before the accident. And it's the same exact injury.
Okay.
So every time there is a pre-existing injury, it does cause problems to the value of your case. And that's something that clients should understand.
Okay.
But there's also other factors and defenses as well that the clients should know about.
Can you give us just a couple of those?
Right.
What would those be?
One of the biggest drivers of value is liability. So when you're in a car accident and we're making a third-party claim, the person who you were involved in an accident has to be at fault. If you were at fault, you're not eligible for a third-party case.
Okay.
Okay? You're not eligible for a pain and suffering case.
Okay.
So one of the biggest defenses for the insurance companies is to say that the other person was not at fault. If it seems like the other person was mostly at fault, then you're going to get, pretty close to the value you should be getting. But if there is any doubt, if it was two people met in an intersection and both of them said their light was green and there's no independent witnesses, the officer might not assign blame to anybody,
Okay.
the investigating officer. Now we have a 50-50 chance at winning at trial. So typically your value, that $100,000 that we were talking about before, is now going to be reduced by 50%. So we're
Okay.
going from 100,000 to 50,000. That's the biggest influence of value is that liability.
Okay.
If there's a chance that if you are listed as fault on the police report, even if you didn't get a ticket, that is very difficult to get around. And oftentimes your value, that $100,000 you would have typically had, could get reduced down 60, 70, 80%, down to $20,000. If you've received a ticket but you still don't believe you're at fault, that is something that's very difficult to get around. You may have to settle for a nominal value in that case. I've had a lot of clients who try to dispute, like, I looked both ways and then I went, but you had the stop, but my client had the stop sign.
Yeah.
The other person didn't. It doesn't matter if the other car was speeding. If you had the stop sign, and there was no other witnesses, you're going to be placed at fault, and your chances of getting anything out of this is going to be, very small.
Okay.
So now your case, the $100,000 is only going to be worth like $5,000 to $10,000 because
Okay.
you may have been at fault.
Unless the police report indicates for sure that the other driver was at fault.
If the police report indicates that the other driver's at fault, then there should be no diminishing of value on your case
Okay.
Off of that $100,000 based on liability.
Okay.
But so pre-existing injuries is one factor that reduces value.
Liability.
Liability is another issue, and then each of anything that shows that you're able to go back to your normal life, like we discussed before. Like if you go back to work right away,
Okay.
a lot of times insurance companies will use that against you. And it's not a really fair argument, because if you're off too long, they'll say this person is trying to malinger, they're trying to lie and fake like they're really hurt, because why didn't they go back to work?
Yeah.
But if you go to back to work right away, they'll make the opposite argument as to this person is clearly not as injured as they claim, because most plaintiffs, when they're hurt, they take off 3 to 6 months to even a year off after the accident. So if you go back to work too quickly, they use that against you.
Okay.
You know, if sometimes there's policy issues where you may not have, you know, the correct coverages, the coverages that might not be there, and that could also decrease the value of cases as well. But
So the last question I'll pose to you is, we've seen this a lot, and I don't think clients know what it is. So what is a case manager, and how are they involved in an auto accident case?
A case manager, well, a case manager is basically someone who directs patients who don't have the ability to find their own doctors and keep track and manage their medical care. They will tell you where to go and how to get doctors, and when your appointments are, and what type of doctors you need to see, because a lot of times when you get in a car accident, people don't know what types of doctors they need. If they have a headache, they may not know what type of doctor they need to go see. They may just see their family doctor. Their family doctor may not be experienced with traumatic injuries. They're just used to colds and flus and those types of conditions.
Right.
But you need a specialist, and there's certain injuries that appear after car accidents on fairly regularly, and case managers know which doctors are able to see those. And it's also important when your insurance company, if they don't pay your bills, and they often don't, case managers will help you find doctors that are willing to see patients on a lien basis. So they will see them without payment and wait till after the case is closed, and then get payment through the lawsuit. So case managers help with all of that as well.
Is a case manager beneficial to every client in every case, or are there certain...
I would say not every client needs a case manager. If you have a serious injury, then you should be getting with a case manager. But if it is, you know, if you don't believe the injury is serious, then you probably don't need one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Pradeep. This was an enlightening conversation. Before we end it, would you like to say anything to the audience?
Well, I think that, you know, in addition to what I discussed regarding the third-party pain and suffering cases, every client should have a no-fault case as well, and that also will drive up the value of your case. And there are ways to that you can make money, I guess, off of these no-fault cases as well. So when you talk to your attorney about the value of your case, remember you're going to have this third-party case, but you're also going to have a no-fault case. And when you look to settle, look at both cases together and see what's the total amount coming in your pocket before making any decisions, because there are so many different ways and so many different manners through which value is generated in an auto accident case. And it is important for you to understand all of this before you make any decisions.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, if you require any legal assistance, please give our office a call, 248-385-5704, or check out our website, civafirm.com. And thank you again for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you on the next segment of Secrets of the Law. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.